Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Game News Roundup where we go over the latest gaming news and VGChartz estimates, which there are none today. So today is focused on the latest gaming news today being Monday, January 30th, 2023, through last Thursday or so. Going back like 4 or 5 days. So first things first, Sony today announced PS5 stock is improving. Specifically on the PlayStation blog, Sony said, "To all our fans, thank you for your patience as we navigated unprecedented demand for the PS5 console amid global challenges," referring to obviously all the stock shortages of the last 2 years. "If you're looking to purchase a PS5 console, you should now have a much easier time finding one at retailers globally. For players in the US, UK, France, Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg, be sure to check direct.playstation.com to purchase a PS5 console, games, and accessories directly from PlayStation. PS5 products are also available at participating retailers globally." I was seeing in December that there was definitely more stock, and obviously Sony announced PlayStation 5 had its best ever month in December, sales-wise, even bigger than its launch month. And it sold over 30 million units worldwide. How much more over 30 million? Well, they haven't specifically said. They will be releasing their shipment figures this week on Thursday at 1 a.m. Eastern, so I'll probably stay up, and once that comes out, I'll write an article on it and then make any necessary adjustments on VGChartz. But we are currently, with our estimates, at 30.63 million units sell-through. And as I always like to say, there's a gap between shipment and sell-through. Even if a console is selling out relatively quickly, or even almost instantly, it feels like, it still takes time for the consoles to ship from the manufacturers, over in Asia to Europe, North America, South America, and, all the other places around the world. So there's always going to be a bit of a gap. Of course, from what I've seen, obviously the gap between shipped and sell-through is by far the smallest with PlayStation. While Series X and S and Switch is definitely far bigger than with the PS5. PS5 stock is improving, so if you want to get a PS5, now is your time to go look out and hopefully be able to find one much easier. I have seen lots of photos of people saying, like, "Hey, look, PS5's in stock." I mean, I've seen photos like, "Oh, wow, there's hundreds." Now, usually it's like, "Oh, this store has a few in stock." And, I've seen several of those photos, which is good. Starting to see some actually hitting the store shelves and not just disappear. So, it's good if you want a PS5 now, hopefully be able to find one much easier over the coming months, or even not right now. And also, let's see, one of the big topics of today, Phil Spencer did a big interview with IGN towards the end of last week. So we go over some of the tidbits, some of the articles I wrote about it on the different things he talked about. So first things first, as I mentioned, last week, I'm sure most of you are aware, Microsoft, during its Developer Direct, announced 4 games that were going to be showcased. But all of it out of nowhere, they showcased and announced and released a new game from Tango Gameworks, HiFi Rush, which Series X and S, PC, Steam, Epic Games Store, Microsoft Store, as well as on Game Pass last week. Phil Spencer, he did say the shadow drop of HiFi Rush, the shadow drop being announcing and releasing it at the same time, worked really well. So his direct quote, "Yeah, the shadow drop, it seems like it worked really well this time. It's not a thing we've done a ton of. This was an idea from the team," referring to the developers, Tango Gameworks, the team that worked on it. They've been playing the game, felt good about their launch date and some of the early signals on quality, and said, "Hey, it would just be fun. It would just be fun to be able to launch this during the Developer Direct and say, play it now." So we rolled with that. We're always learning, always listening, and it seems that the community's responding well, which I think is a good signal. I love HiFi Rush. I love the way it looks. I love the music. One of the games I'd always wanted to get, we weren't able to land it in our backwards compatibility program, was Jet Set Radio Future. And yeah, if you're familiar with Jet Set Radio Future, HiFi Rush visually looks very similar. Very similar visually. I thought it would be fantastic to be able to have that game back, and definitely it's a different kind of game, but some of the same vibe. So when looking at Tango Gameworks, just watching as it evolved over the last couple of years, I'm really happy with where it came out. They were able to get some good licensed tracks in the game. The gameplay is really fun and unique, and I think the look is just striking. It was a good mix. I was happy with the diversity of all games. the content that we had, the great games that we had in Developer Direct, and I think Hi-Fi Rush is definitely showing itself to be one of the highlights of the show, which is nice. Now, do I think Microsoft is going to be shadow dropping every game in the future? Not a chance. I mean, obviously they have like 20 plus announced games. Maybe not 20 plus. 10 plus announced games. Announced in the last bunch of years that still haven't released. Now, do I think, say, Gear 6, it hasn't been announced. Do I think, they're going to announce it and shadow drop it? No. I don't think they're going to do any shadow dropping with big AAA games. I don't think it's something they're going to do. Maybe they'll announce the game closer to the release date versus, three or more years before it comes out. But I think shadow dropping could work for the medium and smaller games. Something like Hi-Fi Rush, which, it's a $30 game. It's not really, I would say, a AAA game, but, it's still, it's a medium-sized game, I guess is how I would describe it. Not quite, indie, small, but not AAA. It's somewhere in the middle. So yeah, I think shadow dropping games like that could work, whether obviously Xbox does it, PlayStation, Nintendo. Now, would it work for, say, a smaller developer to do that? I don't think so. They probably would need to announce it and build up some hype. But from one of the big three, I think it works. Especially since it also is on Game Pass day one. So a lot of people are like, what's this? What's it? Oh, download it, But, yeah, Phil Spencer saying the Hi-Fi Rush Shadow Drop worked really well so far. And it's a thing. Maybe they'll do it more in the future. But, again, I don't see it happening with big AAA releases. Phil Spencer also in the interview did admit to the Lackluster 2022 release schedule from first-party Xbox developers, which, no kidding. There was Pentiment, a smaller game, which is good, but, more niche, from Obsidian Entertainment. The Grounded full release, but it had already been in early access for a while. Deathloop, which was originally a PS5 exclusive, coming to Xbox after that exclusivity ran out. And that was really about it from first-party studios. Yeah, it was a pretty quiet year from first-party studios from Xbox, to say the least. But he admitted that. So, Phil Spencer's direct quote. I think it's a little different internal because we obviously know that we have a developer direct. We know what content we're building, and we know what we're already going to be doing in June in our showcase. But our commitment to our fans is that we need to have a steady release of great games that people can play on our platform, and we didn't do enough of that in 2022. There's no doubt, no doubt. It's really, really bad. And fundamentally, that's on me. I'm the head of the business. The commitment we have to our customers to continue to deliver great games is something that I take seriously. The teams take seriously in 2022. Was too light on games, obviously. Redfall and Starfield, two of the big releases that were scheduled for 2022, were delayed to the first half of 2023. I believe Redfall, I think it's May 2nd is its official release date, which they announced last week. And Starfield is getting its own showcase soon-ish. And hopefully we'll get an actual release date then. So we'll see. So we're excited about getting to roll into 2023, have the developer direct which they had last week. I felt really good about the games that we were showing, and then also knowing that Starfield is a game that we'd be able to highlight in its own show, and then just start off 2023 with good momentum. The Hi-Fi Rush Shadow Drop. Decent start to 2023, especially after 2022 being so lackluster. And like you said, I think we needed that. Spencer said Microsoft started 2023 with good momentum. The Xbox Developer Showcase earlier in the week. I hesitate to get ahead of the launches, just because I know there's some, and rightfully some, fatigue in the community about us saying, hey, just wait until. So that one of the reasons it was nice to be able to launch Hi-Fi Rush during the show, to show that we can launch. Hey, look, an actual game. And I look at things like Pentiment, which came out in November, as a really high-quality game, but there has to be more. And when I look at Minecraft Legends, when I look at Redfall, I look at the work that we're doing on Forza Motorsport, one of my favorite franchises, Elder Scrolls Online, the things that we showed, being what they showed at the Developer Direct. I think it was important for us to show games, to show dates, although there was no date with Forza Motorsport. Originally, it was supposed to be spring 2023, and then just said 2023 during the Developer Direct, which makes me think it might be delayed until, say, September. Seems like a good time to launch Forza Motorsport, but I could be wrong. If it's delayed a little bit, I'd rather a game be delayed and get the time it needs to be a better game. Not to be a buggy mess or whatever. Than to be released in a bad state. Talking to you, Cyberpunk. And, everyone has games that get delayed. Breath of the Wild was delayed so many times. And I think, what was it, God of War Ragnarok was delayed a year. Horizon Forbidden West was delayed a few months. You know, a lot of games have been delayed. Especially because with the pandemic and developing games being a lot harder and things just taking longer. Longer than expected. So yeah, Phil Spencer admitting 2022 lackluster, but 2023 is starting with good momentum. Is looking to a stronger year. Phil Spencer, again, with his interview with IGN, mentioning 343 and Halo are critically important to Xbox. Microsoft earlier this month announced that they're laying off 10,000 employees, and Halo developer 343 Industries was hit the hardest. Confirmed, more or less, out of all the confirmed layoffs, 343 hit far worse than any other first-party studio under Xbox. A lot of other studios had a handful of layoffs, but nothing major. Well, at least 60 people have been reported laid off at 343 Industries. A lot of them on the campaign side of things. So, yeah. But yeah. Phil Spencer saying, I'm going to start because I think sometimes it gets a little bit lost in the discussion about Halo and 343, which will always be iconic for Xbox. Is just the launch of Halo Infinite a little over a year ago, and the quality of execution and that team put into the game, I thought it was fantastic. Yes, the quality, the gameplay, and everything was fantastic, although the game did feel like it was a bit bare bones at launch. At least the multiplayer side felt a little bit too bare bones. There wasn't enough, like, game modes, not really enough maps, at least not coming out quickly enough. Firefights missing, and there were a lot of modes. And then obviously Forge was delayed, co-op was delayed nearly a year by the time it finally came out, you know, for the campaign. So yeah, Phil Spencer, I was saying, obviously we're talking about the following year, and I think there are some missteps that we made as a team, absolutely. But I don't want to take away from the fact that the team did a really good job delivering a great Halo game. I think reviewers commented on that. We definitely saw players last year playing and the success that the game had. At the same time, when we launched that game, we know we needed to make some commitments to people about the content updates and our timing on those and the quality. And we didn't hit our own bar for doing that. I believe in the team that's there, Pierre and the leadership team and the plan that they have. 343 studio head Pierre Hintz, recently taking over as studio head. Also, if you don't know, he's the guy who made Master Chief Collection a good collection of Halo games. When it first came out, it was a disaster. It was not very good. They did the bare minimum and they kind of left it. And then Pierre came in and was like, we got to fix it. And they made Master Chief Collection much better. And hopefully, with him leading the future with Halo, I almost said Halo 6. Halo 7, we have the next Halo game will be. Hopefully, it'll be a good, rock-solid game. But yeah, he's the studio head now. He's been on Halo for a long time, talking about Pierre. He's worked on the Master Chief Collection. He's done some great work. The team has a very good plan. What we're doing now is we want to make sure the leadership team is set up with the flexibility to build the plan that they need to go build, and Halo will remain critically important to what Xbox is doing, and 343 is critically important to the success of Halo. In terms of support studios and other things, that's just part of development and having other partners help us. Yeah, a couple of other developers have been helping 343 with developing Halo Infinite. But the heart and soul of Halo is with 343, the team that's there, and I have the utmost confidence in the team that's there and leading, and the plan that we have going forward. So I hope so. I mean, it feels like the 343 Halo games have not reached the benchmark set by Bungie during Halo 1, 2, 3 ODST and Reach days. So hopefully with new leadership there and Microsoft gives them the time to develop what they need to do for the next Halo game. And it hopefully being, I would assume be a Series X and S and PC exclusive. Unless it's so far in the future, it's coming out for so long, it'll be a whatever the next console is from Xbox. No idea. But yeah, we probably won't be seeing another Halo game for another holiday 2026 with the earliest. Probably not to 2027, 2028 is my guess. But anyways, also Phil Spencer talked about the Last of Us HBO series, said it is fantastic, and the team has done a great job. And yeah, the show has actually been a big hit for HBO, Naughty Dog. People are loving it. The first 2 episodes, I think, were pretty close to the game. On the most recent episode 3, deviated a bit more from the game. So yeah, Phil Spencer, they've done a great job, referring to the Last of Us TV show, HBO series, with an adaptation of a fantastic game on the television screen, and kudos to the team, all the teams that worked on it. Obviously, the foundation of that is the work that Naughty Dog did in building the franchise, and I also think that, and he probably won't like what I call him out on this, but the fact that Neil himself has played a role, obviously, in the creation of the game and the franchise, but seeing him applying his creative talents in the TV space. So yeah, he's helped work on the TV show, and I think directed at least 1 or 2 episodes of the show. I think is really great. It's great for him. It's great for the team. But also say as an industry where maybe, and everybody won't agree with me, but sometimes I think we've looked at other media in an envious way as gaming, that we felt that we were kind of outside or maybe even lesser in some ways. I've never felt that, but I could sense it. Referring to, like, I guess TV shows and movies considered better entertainment, I guess, medium than gaming. I think that's what he's referring to. The fact that you take one of the greatest creators from our industry and you could have success in creating in another medium, I just think that shows that in the games industry, you have some amazing storytellers, amazing creators across all third-party and first-party. I think it's just a great moment to see the success that they're having with the franchise, and congrats to all of them. He also added, I want the best for everything that we worked on. Halo television series included, which, I thought it was okay. I wasn't blown away. It deviated way, way too much from the source material. I think the acting was generally fairly good. There's some things that was like, why? Like, to me, it was okay. It was okay. Trying to keep my love of the franchise out of it. It's like, it could have been much better. But stick more to source material, and there's plenty of Halo novels to take off if they didn't want to do specifically from the games. But, anyways, but yeah, I don't know. I'm going with this, but Last of Us TV show is highly rated and highly loved. That the second season has been renewed. It has been renewed for a second season. Announced the end of last week. HBO announced it. The TV series has been renewed. Second season, following huge success from the first 2 episodes and a lot of positivity. So Neil Druckmann, executive producer on the show, and honestly one of the creators of Last of Us, I'm humbled, honored, and frankly overwhelmed that so many people have turned in and connected with our retelling of Joel and Ellie's journey. The collaboration with Craig, our incredible cast and crew on HBO, exceeded my already high expectations. Now we have the absolute pleasure of being able to do it again with Season 2. On behalf of everyone at Naughty Dog and PlayStation, thank you. And we're fairly certain that the second season is going to follow Last of Us Part 2. At least I think that's what I was reading. That's going to follow the second game, as the first season of the show is following Last of Us Part 1. One last thing from Naughty Dog. They have moved on from Uncharted. Naughty Dog co-president Neil Druckmann, in an interview with BuzzFeed, stated the studio has moved on from the Uncharted series and can do the same with The Last of Us sometime in the future. I know there's a bunch of people wondering about The Last of Us Part 3 and whether there will be a thing or not. All I could say is that Naughty Dog, we're very, very privileged that our publisher is Sony, which means Sony funds our games, supports us, and we're owned by Sony. They have supported us every step of the way to follow our passions, meaning just because something is successful, people think there's all this pressure and we have to make a sequel. That's not the case. For us, Uncharted was insanely successful. Uncharted 4 was one of our best-selling games, and we're able to put our final brushstroke on the story and say that we're done. We're moving on. Likewise, with The Last of Us, it's up to us whether we want to continue it or not. Our process is the same thing we did when we did Part 2, which is if we can come up with a compelling story that has this universal message and statement about love, just like the first and second game did, then we will tell that story. If we can't come up with something, we have a very strong ending with Part 2, and that will be the end. Naughty Dog is working on a multiplayer Last of Us game. So it's just a multiplayer game set in the universe of The Last of Us. We don't know much about it. It's probably a ways away. It'll probably be a games as a service, being a multiplayer game. But also, The Last of Us series has sold over 37 million units between Last of Us The original Last of Us on the PS3, the remaster on the PS4, the remake on the PS5, and Last of Us Part 2 on the PS4. And maybe we'll get a Last of Us Part 2 remaster, I don't know, on the PS5 or something. I don't know. Rumor from quite literally right before I went live. From IGN, according to multiple sources who spoke with IGN, apparently Xbox, Nintendo, and PlayStation will all be skipping E3 2022. PlayStation skipping? Not really a surprise. The last E3 they attended was 2018. They didn't go to 2019. I think 2020 was outright canceled. And then 2021 was digital only. They weren't there. There was no E3 last year in 2022. I need a microscope. Where was love in The Last of Us Part 2? I don't know. That is a good question. Somewhere. You need a microscope, apparently. I don't know. And Nintendo's been doing a Nintendo Direct. Digital. It's a digital event. But they have, I think through 2019, I'm fairly certain that Nintendo has held a booth at Nintendo, what they call the Nintendo Treehouse, their booth. And Xbox has been at E3, more or less. I mean, even if they were to technically skip 2023 and not do a specific booth on the show floor, they've already said they're going to be holding the usual main showcase in June at their Microsoft Theater. It'll probably be during the same time as E3, maybe right before E3 starts. Kind of like when EA stopped going to E3, they still held their own event like the day before E3 or the 2 days before E3. So a lot of the press would get to LA, they would do the EA event, they would have and then obviously Xbox, PlayStation, when they did a Nintendo, Ubisoft and whatnot did their usual showcases, press conferences, and then the main show floor would open up for a few days. Hey Dave, how are you doing? You're so late. I must be fashionably by now. I mean, maybe. You might be. You might be as I'm wrapping up the gaming news. But yeah, Phil Spencer, they basically confirmed that they will be doing the usual showcase in June. They did mention that the Developer Direct has been a success, but they're still going to do their main showcase in June. It sounds like maybe we'll be getting a couple Developer Directs a year, so we'll get one like in January, showcasing games coming out before E3, or their main showcase in June. And then they'll have the main showcase in June, and then maybe like in September or whatever, before the main games come out for the holidays, they'll hold a Developer Direct, making a big showcase about the main games coming out over the next few months. Seems to be like, it was good. I enjoyed the Developer Direct. Even if, obviously, if you didn't enjoy the games on it, that's one thing, but I think most people were saying the format was good, even if you didn't care for all the games that were showcased. It was like, you give each game about 10 minutes to the developers to talk about a game, showcase new gameplay, talk about the features and whatnot, which I enjoyed. Then my main issue with like the big showcases like that Microsoft has done in the past, like during E3 time, it's 90 minutes. We'll show you 40 games in 90 minutes. And you're like, all right, each game gets like 2 minutes. With 40 games, you ain't gonna remember most of them. So I feel like they show too many games. It's like, I feel like if they showed, 20, they focus on like 20 to 25 games, they give each game a little bit more time. Maybe, sure, you have a sizzle reel, maybe a little bit indie games, a little bit quicker, but like, if those bigger games get that little bit more time, I think that would be better. But that's just me talking. That's how I feel. Everyone has their own opinion. That's just what I think. So yeah, it's just like sometimes with these big showcases, like, all right, you got so many games. And then 90 minutes, Nintendo's done the same in the past, or PlayStation, although PlayStation, I think the last couple of actual E3 showcases, they were shorter. And they had fewer games to showcase. But anyways, a few more quick things. The DualSense Edge, the more expensive PlayStation 5, fancier controller, I guess equivalent to like the Xbox Elite Series controller. Like, more expensive controller. I think it's like $200 for the DualSense Edge. Apparently, when it came out, Australian Buds controller did a teardown video, and the battery was smaller. I think it looked like Sony added so much internals to it that they had to make the battery smaller to make it fit. The DualSense Edge itself has a 1050 milliamp hour battery. The original DualSense has a 1560 milliamp battery, and the PS4 DualShock controller has a 1000 milliamp battery. So the DualSense Edge has potentially like 1/3 less battery life than the standard DualSense controller. Potentially. it'll require testing and things, But yeah, there is the regular DualSense battery, and then there's the Edge battery, the Edge controller there. Now, I feel like people who are willing to spend that much money on a controller, they want more accurate thing that they'll probably play with the controller plugged in, maybe. Versus over is it Bluetooth that controllers work? I think it's Bluetooth that controllers work over. But yeah. And here we go, the usual. We can't go a Game News Roundup without talking about the Activision Blizzard acquisition. I save it to the end. Report. FTC sued to block Microsoft, Activision, Blizzard to stop the EU accepting a settlement. Report from Bloomberg claims the FTC filed the lawsuit quicker than expected as a way to dissuade the European Union regulators from accepting a settlement allowing the deal to be approved. This is according to people familiar with investigations. Again, this is a report treated as a rumor with a grain of salt. The FTC reportedly filed its complaint a matter of hours after the U.S., the FTC, and European Union officials held a call about their investigations into the deal. During the call, the European Union regulators said they plan to start discussions with Microsoft about a settlement. This knowledge is what led the FTC to file the lawsuit on the same day, even though this wasn't supposed to happen until later in the investigation, according to this report. The FTC wasn't going to act until the spring, according to the sources who spoke with Bloomberg. Fried Frank Harris, Shriver, and Jacobson's antitrust head lawyer, Barry, told Bloomberg the lawsuit was an attempt to get out in front of the Europeans in an effort to shape the narrative. FTC in its original filing looked to block the deal. As stated, Microsoft decided to make several Bethesda titles, including Starfield and Redfall, Microsoft exclusive, despite assurances it had given the European antitrust authorities no incentives to withhold games from rival consoles, although even the European Union, I believe on that, even came out and said that wasn't true. Microsoft did say it was a case-by-case basis. Any games that are currently out or already announced on PlayStation, have any deals in place with PlayStation, will still remain on PlayStation. And the deal so far has been approved in Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Serbia, and Chile. Obviously, FTC in the US, the European Union, and the UK are the main three still waiting on. China also, Japan, Canada, and several others. Australia, New Zealand also need to approve it. But it looks like the US, European Union, and the UK are the big three that we are waiting on. Another thing on it, Microsoft lead of communications Frank Shaw, in a series of tweets, claims that Sony has misled the European Union regulators over the commitment by Xbox on keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation if its acquisition of Activision Blizzard is approved. Shaw, in a series of tweets, I hear Sony is briefing people in Brussels, claiming Microsoft is unwilling to offer them parity for Call of Duty if we acquire Activision. Nothing could be further from the truth. We've been clear we've offered Sony a 10-year deal to give them parity on timing, content, features, quality, playability, and other aspect of the game. We've also said we're happy to make this enforceable through a contract, regulatory agreements, or other means. Sony is the console market leader, and it would defy business logic for us to exclude PlayStation gamers from the Call of Duty ecosystem. Our goal is to bring Call of Duty and any other games, as we did with Minecraft, to more people around the world so they can play them where and how they want. So yeah, Minecraft, again, is their main multi-platform. It sounds like they'll be doing the same with Call of Duty. Now, of course, what about other games from Activision Blizzard? We don't know. The focus has been on Call of Duty and just Call of Duty. It's all we've heard. And Microsoft has offered Sony a 10-year deal to keep Call of Duty with same content, same everything, day-and-date release on PlayStation as it is on Xbox for 10 years, which I guess would lead it through at least 2033, 2032. Depending on if the deal is approved and when it's approved, if it's 10 years. And Microsoft did sign an agreement with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to the Nintendo platforms. I mean, how will it run on the Switch? Probably not very well. Also for 10 years. Now, of course, they could just release a cloud version of Call of Duty on the Switch, or wait until Nintendo releases its next console, or hybrid console, whatever it'll be, in a couple of years' time. Again, I've said March 2024 will be the very earliest we're going to see a Switch successor, but we probably might be further. It might be later on before we see a successor to the Switch. Don't know. We'll see, and we will find out. But I digress. That is it for the Game News Roundup. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe. Leave a comment. It all helps the channel. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. Trying to grow this channel. And, yeah, thank you all so much for watching. See you all next time.